Every so often, I go on a bit of a bender on Steam where I browse the plethora of free games on it and add way too many of those games to my account. There is a lot of interesting and unique games that people just put up there for free, which is crazy to me, considering that there's a fee to upload games on Steam, unlike that of something like itch. And I enjoy checking out these games. I also enjoy free shit, so there's that. Who doesn't love free shit? Especially on Steam. I'm sure these people who commented on last year's PC Gaming While Broke video feel the same. Steam unlocked. IDK, just pirate stuff, lol. Yar har. Pirate Chads won. SMH, I thought it was gonna list top 10 websites for free games or something. Look, I love piracy. I'm a huge advocate for it and regularly exercise it. But they're all missing the point of the whole fucking video. I have massive respect for people who publish games for free, not asking a single cent for the however many hours and resources they poured into creating a piece of art. And with that, I feel like I should go through a handful of these games I found that look cool as hell and interesting, and give some of my thoughts on them. Maybe those creators will appreciate the feedback, or maybe checking out these projects might inspire someone to start creating their own games. So here's 9 of those games that caught my interest. Thank you to my supporters. If you liked the video, consider subscribing or even joining the Patreon. Link on screen and in the description. If you do, you'll be thanked in the videos, be able to watch each video a week early, as well as gain access to bonus videos. The first game I played of this lot is called The Children of Clay, which is an incredibly fucking short game taking only 15 minutes to play through. Honestly, I was left wanting more out of the game with how little time I was allowed to spend with it. But I get why there wasn't more, and that's because this game is entirely made using stop motion claymation, which has gotta be a bitch to animate compared to the standard video game. But man, is it super worth the effort because this shit is gorgeous. Having the models be real life models gives the game such a distinct look, one that really helps add to the spookiness too. The Children of Clay is a horror game with focus on occult type shit, which I fuck with occult horror heavy. Love it. This game, though, is centered around Hungarian mythology, which is super unique and interesting. I can't think of a single other time that Hungarian myth and folklore was featured in anything else. I don't even think it's represented in SMT. Do correct me if I'm wrong on that, though. The actual gameplay is a kind of archaeology simulation. You examine the spooky-ass statue centered on the table and then start hitting the books trying to look up anything to give you further leads on what the fuck that is on the table. I would love to see this game further expanded upon and fleshed out with more scenarios and more complex scenarios. It's a super solid proof of concept for a game, but as it currently stands I feel like it's probably better described as an interactive art exhibit. Don't take that as a negative, but it definitely feels like the goal of Children of Clay is art first, game second, and it absolutely succeeded in that. I would very much recommend checking it out. It won't even take that long to do. A running theme with many of the free games on Steam, and also some of the games featured in this video, is being a fucking short horror game, which can also describe Blood Orange Definitive Edition. No clue why Definitive Edition is strapped to the title, especially when those words aren't found anywhere else. Blood Orange is a 30-minute long RPG Maker horror game. I was kind of expecting the game to be about an hour long, possibly 2, but to hit credits only a half of an hour in was surprising to me. And I feel like Blood Orange could have benefited from that longer runtime to explore its primary gameplay mechanic more than barely at all. Blood Orange opens with Nora, who is an underwater photographer, and you walk around, slowly walk around, and snapping some pictures of the local fish. Hey, this shit is pretty cool. And Blood Orange does some cool things like taking the pictures you shot and needing to develop them, and when you do, not only do the fish look freaky because fish be some weird and gross little feckers, but there's something new in the developed photo that Nora didn't see when she took it. I am super down with this. It's a shame that the photography stuff only lasts for like 2 fucking rooms, then dips out. Come on, I was into that. So what was the photography stuff replaced with? Some basic ass run away from the bullshit chasing you generic horror gameplay. And I don't want to run from these fuck ass dolphins, I want to take creepy photos of them. Except, what if I told you it wasn't just a generic panic horror type beat, but one that is not good? Remember how I said that your movement is slow? I get it. You're underwater, it's not like you're gonna be breaking out into full sprints. But you do at least have a run button, which needs stamina, and you don't get to see your stamina bar. Look, if the only resource I have at my disposal is the run button, I would appreciate more information than none at all, and not have to go off of purely vibes on when I'm going to be running out of gas. The game takes a shift where it starts focusing on the narrative more, and between those bits, you're running away from fuck-ass dolphins, which are absolute bitches to run away from. Honestly, I've got no idea how to deal with these dolphins. You don't have enough stamina to get away from them if they spot you, you can't leave the room, they just follow, and I tried hiding in these lockers, but the dolphins just opened the door and climbed on in with me. With what, their fucking hands? I came out of this game saying, yeah, I'm good. Didn't bother shooting for the other endings. I begrudgingly can't give this a recommendation, which sucks because there was potential here. I think the change in focus from underwater horror photography to generic panic horror gameplay killed this game. Kowloon's Curse Lost Report is a sort of prologue for a game that looks to be still in development. The developer regularly posts screenshots and shit about the game, so that's a good sign. Kowloon's Curse looks to have been a project started back in 2021 with a Kickstarter and an original planned release for 2022. Well, that didn't happen, but we did get Lost Report in 2023. No idea about any release date at all for the full game. I learned about this game originally because apparently both Chiaki Konaka and Yoshitoshi Abe did some guest work on the game, writing a bit of side content and doing a couple character designs respectively. But as for what the game is, Kowloon's Curse Lost Report is a first-person dungeon crawler. You walk around the city on a grid doing odd jobs for some mafia boss man. I love these environments and the various characters populating it. They're great. I walked out of the main character's, Tony's, apartment and there's some cat taking a long drag off a cigarette. A little further out and these streets are littered with lovable little freaks. It's great. The walking around, general aesthetic of the place, the characters and their designs, all of that is great. What isn't is the turn-based combat this game's got going on. It leaves a lot to be desired. Tony's basic punch is ass. Shooting your gun is always a better option. And skills don't cost MP, so as long as you can land this easy as hell QTE, you'd be a fool to choose anything else as your standard attack. Honestly, kinda brain dead in that regard with how there's a clear best option in most scenarios. There are of course other skills that are rarely useful. Like, I got this skill called Plato's Final Refutation where Tony spouts off random bullshit and every time I used it, it did jack shit. Except for the one time it did work. This guy was told to disappear so hard he actually did. I'm impressed he pulled that off. Also, shout out to the gun attack getting glitched after a certain point. As I said, you're supposed to do an action command for the attack, but for some reason it broke and would autocomplete with a random result. I'm going to give this one a recommendation with the caveat of go in knowing the combat is balls. I wouldn't recommend a full-length RPG with this gameplay, but for this shorter 2-hour game, it's worth trudging through to see the good stuff this game has to offer. I'm definitely curious to see what the full game will look like if and when that ever drops. I'd hope the combat system gets reworked in it. It Gets So Lonely Here is a Toxic Yuri visual novel submitted to the Yandere Game Jam 2023 on itch. Surprise, surprise, there's a focus on yanderes here. The visual novel took me about 3.5 hours to read, and what surprised me the most about it is that it is written in the second person. That is very rare to see in fiction. It opens with a girl running away from something in the forest at night when you are presented with 3 choices: the shore, a village, and a castle. I opted to go down the list and started with the shore. The shore is about 50 minutes of the main character flirting with a mermaid before you remember that this is a yandere visual novel and you die. The village takes place post-plague where everyone except a lone gravedigger girl is dead. I love her design. She looks so cool. The village section of It Gets So Lonely Here is easily my favorite of the 3. It's a lot lighter on the flirting and is more focused on grieving and coping with tragedy and the death of your parents. It's a great little story before you remember that you're playing a yandere visual novel and you die. The castle has you run into a princess who is the only inhabitant of a castle. She makes you her personal maid, she sucks your finger after pricking it on a rose, and later invites you into her bed. Pretty fucking forward, huh? But by this point you remember that you're playing a yandere visual novel and you die. The visual novel's pretty alright. I'd at least recommend reading through the village section, the strongest of the 3 stories. Maybe skim through the mermaid bit, that was the weakest. Moving on from gay girls being toxic, here's gay guys being toxic. Yandere, but yaoi this time. Saihate Station is another RPG Maker horror-ish puzzle game with a runtime of about 1 hour and 45 minutes. Horror-ish because honestly it's not that scary. and the puzzling is pretty minor. The game is mostly narrative and story focused to the point that I think that this story would have been better suited as a visual novel than what it currently is. The art in Saihate Station is easily the strongest part of this game. I fucking love the vignetting here where it's using manga cross-hatching. It's a unique way to vignette that I haven't seen anywhere else. But yeah, solid art and visuals. I love the texturing that's used on the whole screen. Despite the environment being largely solid blocks of the same colors, it really helps make it more interesting to look at while giving it a bit of grime to make it a bit spooky. Saihate Station does this thing where when it transitions portraits, the whole text box will disappear and it makes me think that the dialogue is done. So I'll go to move and fucking nothing happens, only to then learn that there's more dialogue. That pissed me off a little bit. I don't think Saihate Station is bad, but I also don't think that the game uses its gameplay genres to its strengths. As I said, I think this should have been a visual novel and it should have focused way harder on the characters and their relationship rather than spend that time on baby mode puzzling. I realize that the games I've talked about have been pretty dark, either visually or narratively or both. I need to introduce some fucking color in this video. Something like Pages of Time. Really pretty game. Straight up, that's the strongest aspect of this whole game. Pages of Time is a decent little puzzle platformer, emphasis on the puzzle part. All of the puzzles revolve around your character's time ability where she has the power to reverse to a previous state of the world. Some decent puzzling here, but they don't go super crazy with the idea, which I think there's some potential to get really creative with. While that's all fine, what is less so is that the game has a weird lack of sound effects to the point that I thought the game's audio broke at first. Even after a restart and checking a gameplay video of it online, I realized that the game is just like this. What I mean is that the actions you think most would need to have associated sound effects just don't have anything. There is no sound effect for when you activate your time power. There is no sound effect for when you fire off magic, though weirdly there is a sound effect for the bell when it's hit. It really feels like that there should be a sound effect for those actions because it just feels wrong not having any audio feedback for when you do anything. Despite the fact that Pages of Time has a low commitment of 45 minutes, I think I'd recommend passing on it. It's not a bad game, but there's nothing about it that is particularly interesting. If you skip out on this, I don't think you're missing much. I was surprised to see that Alicesoft had a free game on Steam, that being Alice's Hanny Crush. The game isn't in English, but that's really not a problem. There's barely any text here and none of it is that important. Maybe get the tutorial translated, but after that, you're all good. Don't need Japanese knowledge to play through this. Alice's Hanny Crush is a cute little distraction game that could last anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes depending on what you want to get out of it. You can tell it's very much inspired by Vampire Survivors, even though it doesn't play much like that. Rather than survival, it's all about score attack, and instead of lasting a half an hour per run, each run can last anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes. Super fucking short. Further differences from Vampire Survivors include pretty much all the gameplay. There are no mid-run permanent upgrades. There are only ever temporary buffs that wear off, but they're dropped like crazy, so that's fine. There's only 3 weapons in the game and 5 accessories, which you can only equip one of each at a time, and you don't get anything else in the run. And each weapon has its own action input tied to it that is either rhythm and or charge based. The best weapon is easily the boomerang. Fuck the drill, that shit is trash with its bitch-made range. There's references to other Alicesoft games when you end a run and are given a score, so that's cool. Yeah, I'd recommend this. It's short, it's cute. This is also easily the lowest time commitment of all the games here, and it is some decent fun for that short time. Alright, it's time to talk about some real shit with Z.A.T.O, I love the world and everything in it. Haven't even gone into the game, just looking at the Steam store. There's bios of the characters in this game. A little disclaimer, this takes place in the Soviet Union and I don't know shit about how to pronounce Russian names at all. But you scroll through the bios and see the main characters, Asia's, and it just reads, "You, not worth writing about." That's pretty fucking funny. Z.A.T.O is a visual novel that took me 6.5 hours to read through. That's quite substantial. Easily the longest game in this selection. This game has stellar art. The portraits for all the characters are so nice looking and so charming, and all the backgrounds are clearly heavily edited pictures, giving off a bit of Higurashi vibes with that. Something I really like is the layout of the screen and the general framing of the visual novel. There's a small window in the center with everything surrounding it being black, just makes everything feel cold. Not cold in temperature, but cold as in distant. Shit feels closed off, in a good way. I like it. Speaking of like, Asia is great. Actually, scratch that. I love her. She's such an awkward girl. She very clearly has low self-confidence, never sure about herself. Her class bullies her, constantly putting her down and fucking with her. And despite that, she's generally an upbeat girl. This stems from the fact that she believes that people in the universe as a whole are inherently good and not evil by nature. She's a big daydreamer and she tries her best. Even though she's a shit pitcher, she still gives it a shot. Z.A.T.O is a story about self-acceptance. Asya says that she loves everything in the world, but every chance she gets, she puts herself down. Despite claiming she loves everything, I get the impression she doesn't much love herself. I just want to reach into the screen and give her a hug, man. I'll be real. I don't know how this was released for free. I don't fucking get it, because the developer could have easily charged about $5 or $6 for this, and that would have been fine. Funnily enough, the digital art pack for the game is just about that at $6. But shit, man. It should say a lot when I'm saying that a free game should have cost money. That should really emphasize the quality of Z.A.T.O, and it goes without saying that I am absolutely recommending this game. Go fucking read it, it's worth it. I went through Z.A.T.O early on for this video. It was like the third game I've played of the 9, and I came out of it saying that I'd be surprised if this wasn't my favorite thing out of the games I'd play for this video. A couple games later, I reached the last game of the lot, and the game that would actually hold that position of my favorite, Franzen. Spoiler alert, I love Franzen. This fucking game was gas and I think you should play it. Now, I am a slut for RPGs in general, so I naturally skew more towards this game as my favorite in this video. But if someone told me they liked Z.A.T.O more, hey, that's not a wrong opinion to have. Franzen is just dripping with some juicy world building to slurp all over and drink it up. The setting is interesting. It takes place in the world of Franzen, where you've got political coups, a weird phenomenon called the Scream from which a corrupting darkness comes out of, all populated with fucking freaks. Lovable freaks, but freaks nonetheless. Two of those freaks are studying the Scream, that being the married couple Franz and his worm wife Lefsa. Fat fuck came in looking ass. The writing for the main party is fantastic. Every member of the party, that being Franz, Lefsa, Sardane, and Fucker, no really that's his name, is so fucking charming. It's so nice to see the interactions between Franz and Lefsa because they genuinely just love each other. There's some teasing here and there, but there's nothing but care for the other. It's so adorable. And when Fucker joins your party, the conversation he has with Sardane is amazing. I was made in the gilded womb of the treasury. I am learning that my enemies too are mere men. What a fucking line. Well, that sums up what this game is all about. It's about having empathy for your fellow man. That maybe shit wouldn't be as fucked up if people not only learned, but also exercised some empathy. Franzen, interestingly enough, does not have any levels or experience, even though it is a relatively traditional RPG outside of that. In a clever way, the game still does incentivize the player to get into fights, as the fights are the best way to get resources, which you will need. Enemies drop equipment, items, and money, and they drop a ton. You will never be in want for anything in this game so long as you actually get into fights and not actively avoid them. To give you an idea, when the game starts dropping the revive item, that being full heal revives, there are battles where 3 or 4 get dropped at once. Damn, that's a crazy amount. But the most important thing that enemies drop is money. About halfway through the game, you're able to purchase items called Demon Cores, which bosses will also drop. When used, they raise all stats by 50. Demon Cores, in essence, is your level up proxy. They strengthen you up, and you need to actually engage in combat to get them. Fairly clever method to make it so the player can't overlevel the first half of the game. Franzen is a super solid short RPG that took me about 4 hours to beat. This is another game, like Z.A.T.O, where I'd say I would have easily have spent an asking price for a couple of bucks for this game and come out of it thinking it was worth the price. The most recommended game here for me. Go fucking play it. Damn, a lot of dark color palettes in this year's video, huh? That was completely unintentional. I'll try and find more colorful shit for next year. Before I end this off, I just want to make it clear that I hold nothing but respect for the people who made these games. I was fairly negative towards some of these games, but that doesn't change the fact that these are still impressive works of art nonetheless. Playing through these games genuinely inspire me to seek out new experiences in this medium of games because you never know what kind of gems you'll be able to find. But more than that, they inspire me to create. And I hope that you play through some of these, or maybe other free indie games, and feel that same drive to make something yourself.